Right, the main topic of conversation obviously around number 9 and being a centre forward and what that looks like and what that feels like and the changes in it and what have you. Before we dive into it, I wanted to sort of get the general feel of the conversation. And again, I mentioned your goal scoring record, albeit I shortchanged you a few earlier on. The main question I wanted to ask you, and again, having come through as a striker, scored goals, now coaching, can you coach goal scoring? Because often we talk about, and commentators do it, I do it in the job that I do here, and that sort of that instinct, that knack of knowing where to be, right place, right time. We mentioned Jayden Danns earlier. He feels like he might have it, and just that born goal scorer element. People speak of Robbie Fowler in that way, don't they?
Yeah.
And it's understandable when you watch him. But yeah, is it something you think is coachable, that ability to find yourself in the right place at the right time and score goals?
Yes, I believe 100% it is coachable. It comes more naturally to certain people. Like when you used to watch Robbie, it was almost like he had a massive desire to score a goal, didn't he? So, he'd smash his nan out of the way to go and score a goal, that kind of attitude. And not everybody's got that. But I think you have to have an understanding of how you're going to score a goal. So whether that's positioning to start with, movement, timing and movement, what type of player are you playing with? Is it a David Beckham where he's going to put it in early? Is it a Gakpo where he might run inside a little bit and look for a slide pass? That's a different timing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And then body shape. How do you need to rearrange your body to be able to get a shot in a goal or a finish? And then the technical aspect of that, that's around balance, timing. How's the ball bouncing? What's the conditions? Is it wet? Is it dry? Is it windy? How far out am I? Is there someone in the way? What angle am I? If I'm getting driven wide by a pass, it might be an idea to think about going high to the near post. There's all these different aspects of that go into scoring goals. Like I've never seen anybody as good at all that as Harry Kane. He's so good at it, and I reference him quite a lot. Yeah. Some of the players that I coach will be going, rolling their eyes up because I talk about him quite a lot. But and you see the likes of Haaland. Whenever the ball's on a certain side of the pitch, he'll always be working his body away from the ball to the blind side of the defender, which just makes it harder for the defender to see the ball and the man. And then he'll time his run off that, and because he's so big and powerful, once he gets motoring, it's hard to stop him. And you see a lot of his goals where he's arriving late and fast. So all them different things can definitely be coached, but you probably wouldn't have to coach Robbie Fowler or someone like Michael Owen or a top goal scorer who probably didn't have all them details in the past. As much of that, because it becomes a bit more natural. Yeah,
no, absolutely, it makes perfect sense. And I guess even they, if they were playing in this era now, they might have improvements to certain sides of the game that even they could develop. Although, again, having watched Robbie do what he did for so long, it's hard to see where he could have really improved, certainly when it comes to sticking the ball in the back of the net. Matty, I'll let you take over from here. I don't forget, Matty's a centre half, by the way, so we've got a centre half and a striker in the room with me, so what a perfect conversation to be having. Yeah, feel free to ask away, mate.
I can definitely agree with Don off the shoulder, because as soon as you look, and you can look back at that in front, and that's where you're talking about like the top level players. You're going, can't really do much.
That's the end of that, though.
Especially with the likes of Haaland, you're not getting your arm across him, are you? Because he just eats it. Yeah. Carry on running.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, we were talking before. I mean, from maybe 20 years ago to now, more or less, I'd say like when you're looking at the game and the way it's gone, I'd say strikers are very different now to what they were, all them years ago. Well, it's not all them years ago. Yeah. I'd say like the old school. I think even formations have changed. I'd say a lot of the time I've got on here. There's a one by himself who might have two wingers, or obviously in the past it was often a 4-4-2 working off each other. How would you say like a modern striker looks now? Because obviously there's a lot more fluidity between wingers and attackers and interchange between a number 10, whereas back in the old day it was probably you're working off each other, aren't you?
Yeah, I think if you look at this 4-4-2 formation, that was obviously a traditional thing probably up to about 12, 15 years ago, and there wasn't really where you'd split and play out from the back. It was more you'd push up and play long, and therefore you'd probably have one who can win the header and one to run beyond and one to be a bit more of a target man, and then that nullifies the risk of playing out from the back, and then you've got that sort of solid base to play off. I think the way it is now is the full-backs are going high, the centre-backs are splitting, you've got a different formation, haven't you? You've got like the three in midfield, whether that's a 2 and a 1 or a 1 and a 2. And you see that 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 shape quite a lot. But the build-up's more slow and more methodical. And the theory behind that a few years ago when I was talking to Roberto Martinez was because you'd be able to get into the final third in comfortable possession. And therefore you can launch an attack from a better position as a team. When you're just playing up long, it's a little bit more random. Sometimes you might get on the second ball and sometimes you might not. And if you split, like your team is split and it drops to the opposition, then you're vulnerable for the counter-attack. So I think that's the first thing I'd want to talk about in terms of how the game's evolved, in terms of formations and stuff like that. So what would you want from your forward in that scenario then? Well, for me, you've always got to be able to threaten in behind, which will drop the opposition's back line at least, as far back as you can possibly imagine, without going ridiculous onto the edge of the box. Because if this striker isn't threatening in behind, then they can just keep pushing up and condensing the space. So the fact that this player must be able to run in behind and threaten that back line will give the space in front for more build-up play. I think when it does go into the feet and you've got players playing off them, they must be able to secure the ball. Ekiteke looks really, really good at that. Very, very good at that in terms of being able to hold it and flick things around the corner. Them little upset through of those, so the ball's going up from the midfield and coming back, then there's got to be somebody else making the space in behind. I think they've got to be able to score from crosses, because if you're building up and you're getting into that final third, most likely the defensive team or the opposition team are going to be in a block and set. So if you can't go through, which most of the time you can't, you've got to either go around or over. And if you're going around, sometimes there's a cross coming in. If you're going over them little diagonal balls, then the striker's got to be able to go and win headers, whether that be for a knockdown, an assist, or to be able to score themselves. Isaac can do all of that.
Yeah, he can, but well mentioned. He can, but I think to the point, and you referenced him there, I think Ekiteke, the early signs of he can do most of that as well. There's a couple of headers he's had in his first two games where you might think, okay, he should be doing at least hitting the target for both of them. But I think short of that, I think you mentioned there, coming to feet, dropping deep, he seems to have that to his game. He can stretch, he can get in behind, and let's be honest, he can finish as well. So the early signs are really positive around him. What
I liked as well was, I always used to think Darwin used to make, let's say we're going this way, the ball was over here, his movement was always sort of like dangerous to non-dangerous, but Ekiteke sort of, let's go this way, so Gakpo's had it here, he's made a run to there but he stopped, so when the ball's gone into him, he's still in a dangerous enough position because he can twist and turn and score from there, but then as Gakpo's come inside, he's laid the perfect pass off, and obviously he's come in and scored. So I think he's got quite a lot of intelligence, Ekiteke, and I'm excited to see him continue to play the way he has, the way he started.
Yeah, well, that the intelligence and the knowing what sort of moves to make and when to make them is absolutely pivotal. I think that was one of the major frustrations with Darwin. We're not going to slag Darwin off, because what's the point? And he had some massive moments. We're going to St James's Park on Monday night, and he literally won a game of football there for us, but he was offside too often. Let's have it right. Like, he just was, and it was nonsensical sometimes as well. And as you say, some of the moves he made were not the smartest either. Matty, your next one was really about, and I'm fascinated by this, and I think you almost alluded to it there in terms of, like, I feel like sometimes, and you might feel free to ask this question a different way, but it does feel like sometimes, and Arsenal were guilty of this under Wenger especially, and I'm going back a few years here, but trying to score the perfect goal as opposed to just being a little bit off the cuff.
Yeah, I the one off the top of my head, the one against Norwich when it was
a goal.
That was a good goal.
Jack Wilshere, wasn't it?
And it was a Giroud,
unbelievable that,
But and you touched on the crossing there. Might just be me, but I don't see often when you're talking about getting in these positions where you see a ball hung up and you're just seeing a striker come in and go. Haaland probably a little bit where he just. But I think Isaac probably does it. I think Ekiteke, as we touched on, seems like a very similar profile of player too. I know we've touched on it before in the past, but in terms of you touching on like the style of play and that these days, do you think it's down to sort of the methodology? I have to tweak that, but however you say it, do you think it's down to the sort of the way football's going? Because as I've touched on, I don't see many just in the Premier League anyway. When it gets hung up and you just see a striker come in and just gobble it up. Whereas usually it's, especially with like the likes of City, it's a low driven ball and you're seeing someone make that back post, but it's for the tapping, isn't it?
Yeah, I think at the elite level, when you're getting into these positions, that's not a bad crossing position, but that's a difficult finish. Not only might the centre forward be, big, 6'2", aggressive, you've got two others, centre halves who are probably a little bit uglier. Yeah. Don't mind the broken nose and, are willing to die to save a goal. Plus you've got a 6'5" keeper probably who's going to come and punch you in the head. There's only a handful of strikers, like you said. I think Mateta is one of them. I think Drogba was the king of that. Haaland does it well. But the most likely scenario or the higher percentage play in this area is to get into this area, whether that be a run, and you see them little half space runs from the midfielders, don't you? Whether that's a fullback sliding a winger in, say wingers come inside, fullbacks overlapped, and then you see a second run from the winger, so the ball comes in there, and then from there you've got more chance of scoring. So I think from a statistical point of view, the game's evolved. When you're looking at stats and data, that pullback or that smash across has got a higher percentage than that one hung up, and that's probably why you're not seeing as much of that. However, that still should happen more, in my opinion, because like the off-the-cuff goals,
drop downs as well.
You've got potentially, winger in, striker in, winger in. You've probably got a backup midfielder, someone for the knockdowns, and then you'd probably want, if these are your two centre backs here, you probably need a defensive midfielder and your opposite fullback tucked in, because that now is okay in terms of if you lose the header, the keeper catches the ball, you've got half a decent structure there to defend the counter attack. Because if you've got, say, Robbo in there, Frimpong in there, or whoever, you've got Jones who wants to score a goal, Szoboszlai who wants to score a goal. All of a sudden, and you've got maybe Virgil there or whoever there, Kanate wanting to, ready to. Then that looks quite open, doesn't it?
Well, it's happened to us.
I know.
We've been sprung upon a few times, and it's just men ahead of the ball.
I think that's exactly what it is, and I think that's maybe just Jones getting, like, I can score a goal here, because that's his mentality, isn't it? Which is a good thing. But I think Gravenberch would probably be that one there, wouldn't he? So you look a little bit more, and Kerkez is going to have to, get used to the style of play, and I think that's that looks a more structured position if you're going to cross the ball to the back post rather than sort of, I don't know, that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, we've been found guilty a few times of that already this season. It's hurt us once, even in pre-season. Remember AC Milan's bringing a couple of counters and punishing us. So yeah, it's going to be something that has to be ironed out. But you're right, it stems from having loads of lads in the team who want to be creators and want to score and assist. And you mentioned Curtis there. I've said it loads of times. All through the academy, he was the main man, scoring and assisting every other week. Yeah. And it's hard to sort of forget that and do your defensive duties. But I'm sure it'll come in time. And I think the conversation around wanting to score the perfect goal, I think it's Pep Guardiola's fault. But Wenger did also start it a little. But goal of the month competitions aren't as fun anymore. They used to be boss, you don't see him. Now it is like, well-worked team goals, stuff like that, which is fine, but more bangers. And Liverpool have been guilty of it as well. Like Dom Szoboszlai doesn't shoot anywhere near as often as he should do,
And he should do, because he can strike the ball unbelievable. And these balls these days, the footballs that we use, they're light. They're not like they used to be back in the day. They fly and they move in the air. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Nobody ever scored a safe goal of the season, did they?
No, not back then.
There's always a bit of risk, and if you've got all this going on and you're trying to work the ball into an area, there's nothing wrong with someone maybe stepping in and having a go, as long as you've got a little bit of structure behind the ball. Because again, statistically, it's not a good idea.
No, it's all about percentages, isn't it? And I guess that's the point, really. Yeah, and Arne Slot's big on the whole risk-reward type stuff when it comes to playing passes. I'm sure that sort of translates into shooting as well. One other area, Matty, I'll let you sort of expand on it, and I think it's a fascinating one. Certainly speak to somebody like Phil about, obviously, from his playing days and now into coaching. It's the off-the-ball stuff and the demand to strike. I think Ian Rush was sort of heralded for his defending from the front, but I feel like that's a bigger conversation now than it ever was.
Yeah, I mean, the way teams play now often, defending from the front's always sort of being used, but often you'd sort of see like a half-assed jog, so to say. But now it is like almost the trigger for the whole team to jump on it. Obviously, there's another thing that strikers sort of have to think about. They're sort of leading the actual press, so the Slots probably one just works handy because it's Liverpool, but you do see him setting triggers, and often obviously Bobby Firmino done it as well, where he'd be the focal point. As soon as he goes, the whole team goes. So there's a lot more tactical input in terms of that to think of off the ball as well, isn't there?
100%. It's not just the case of one player goes or one striker goes running after the ball and, we'll see what happens. It's all structured. There's a lot of understanding. There's got to be a tactical understanding from all the players on the pitch, especially the striker, because they're probably the first one, whether that be showing them into a trap or the trigger for the press. And I think that's why Darwin was so revered by the Liverpool fans, because he would run his socks off and he would just be like running around like an absolute crazy man, wouldn't he? And people loved that. Remember that time Robbo ended up running the whole pitch and he won a throw in over here. Fantastic, and everyone wants to see that, that high energy. And I think Kloppy brought that, didn't he? With that everybody presses, and the amount of times we won the ball and counter-attacked and scored. And that all comes from an organised press. You can't just have one player going or two players going, because the quality in the Premier League these days just go pop, pop, and now you're playing against 9 men instead of 11.
They're out. Yeah. Interesting. Next point we want to touch on is the psychological side of being a striker. And I think this is another interesting one as well, because again, you alluded to the shift in formation a moment ago, and it feels like now more than ever, Liverpool may well be in this situation soon, hopefully, where you have got 2 number 9s, if you like, and only one place to play for. And I think more than anything, Phil, you'll be able to speak better on this in terms of like striking and scoring goals being a confidence game, because we see about like goal droughts and stuff like that. Peter Crouch arrives at Liverpool and score for 15 games, you know what I mean? But it does feel like, and what do they say? You want one to go off your arse, don't you?
Or deflect one in from 25 yards and still claim it.
All that looped over, never on target a million, whatever, however it comes, basically. Yeah. But Matty raises the point to me earlier on, like about not contributing and but still wanting to put in a shift and be a part of the side. That must be quite difficult as a striker.
Yeah, it is, and it's massive, the psychological game, because, and I've said this to a lot of people that have coached, like being a striker is 99 or 95% disappointment, because all you're doing is running around. You're trying to close the opposition down, but it's not you that's going to win the ball. It's somebody further down the chain. You're making runs into the corner flag or over the top. You never get the ball. It comes into your feet. All you're ever going to do is just pop it off to someone else. The time that you are in, someone under it or over it, probably more prevalent to me in the lower leagues. But and then sometimes when you do get a shot and you hit, a chance and you hit the perfect shot, you've got a Premier League keeper tipping it onto the post. So there's a lot of psychological strength that's needed to be a striker, to keep going, because if you give up on the 22nd run, the 23rd one will be the one where you get in and score your goal, and you might have to wait 2 games for that, sometimes 3 games for that. Obviously playing in a team that's dominating possession, you're probably going to get more chances, but yeah, it's definitely a psychological game. It's definitely something that you've got to work on. You've got to be patient. You've got to tap into your teammates and your coaches, and you've really got to work hard at it. And when you haven't scored for a little while, you don't know where the next goal is coming from, and sometimes you do need a little bit of luck. And when you are scoring and the flying in, you hit everything you hit goes in. So there's real discrepancy throughout the season. So there's a lot of psychological challenges you've got to face.
The side gone.
No, you go.
The flip side of that is Hugo Ekitike and the start that he's made to life at Liverpool. Community Shield, essentially his debut proper, scores, Premier League debut at Anfield, scores. Like, he mustn't be able to wait for Monday night and to go out there again.
Absolutely, and what a fantastic start it is, for him, and he's only young, isn't he? For him to come to the Premier League and play in them 2 high-profile matches with the whole world watching, knowing in the back of his mind, I hope we don't get Isaac, because, you know, and even if we do, I need to be able to show that I'm good enough. What that tells me is he's got real self-belief and real quality. You know, you couple self-belief and drive with quality, then, you know, you're going to get more success than failure.
That was a clip from the Coach's Corner. To check out the whole show, head to redmenplus.com or click the link in the description.